so glad to be with you today. I look forward. About once a year I get to come speak to you all, so I appreciate that privilege. Jess, thank you for kind words. I was all prepared to remember that I have the last word, but I didn't need it this time. I've got it. I've got it. Thank you. I always like to start this presentation. You're going to notice I've got some new data. I've got some different things. So if you've seen me speak before, you're like, oh, here we go. There's some new stuff in here, and I think there's some pretty interesting. But I do always like to start with this. Something of which we're very, very proud at the CEP, and that is being the 2020 National Chamber of the Year. That's a big deal for us, not because of the award, but because that's really a recognition of our community. One of the constant calls, and we get to host lots of different communities on a regular basis. I have communities calling us from around the country. Look, we keep hearing about all these things happening in Ocala. How is that happening? What makes that happen? And it's really about you all. It's about our business community. What makes the CEP different and unique is engagement of the business community in the growth of this place. And it's not just about, hey, I'm focused on my business and what I do, but how do we make our community a better place? How do we grow? How do we bring prosperity? And so that's really about you all. So thank you for what you do. So one of the things I think we've all seen is this continues to be a place that grows. Yes?
Yes.
I was at an event last night, and what I got to hear about for people was their traffic. And not responsible for traffic.
Right.
But it is one of the challenges of growth, and we can talk more about that. But we recently received new demographic data. So, and it's trailing data that we get from the census. I received at the very end of March the data for the population of the Ocala Metro. Again, we're a one-county metro, Marion County, as of June 30th of 2021. So it's 9 months old. In a lot of places, that really wouldn't matter. It matters here. Our population, we added 10,000 additional residents, more than 10,000 additional residents over the last year. That means something like 190 new people moved to our community every week in the last year. Think about that. Think about what that means for your business, but also any realtors in the room. Ask a little question. Any developers? Yeah. Just for the people who moved here in the last year, we needed, presumably they have a place to live, we needed another 4,000 housing units just for the people who moved here last year. And we can, in a little bit, if you all want to talk about, we can talk about how many housing units we need, why we need so many, what's unique about housing in the Ocala Metro compared to the rest of the nation right now as we see that increase in housing prices and how our story is a little bit different than the national story. But that's really key. Our current population is just under, again, as of 9 months ago, 386,000 people. We have been on track to reach 400,000. It originally was 2025, and then it was late 2024. Right now, we're going to say early 2024, but the reality is it's going to be in 2023 when we hit that number. That's a 2.2% growth rate, which ranks us in the top 25 fastest growing metropolitan areas year over year in the nation. In sheer numbers, so think about it. Really large metros like a Miami, a Dallas-Fort Worth, their growth rate can be very small, but that's still because they're so large. They have 6, 7, 8, 10 million people. That can be a larger number. We are now the 142nd largest metropolitan area. We'll talk about that more in a second. But we are in the sheer number, we are the 38th fastest. That's big. As you think about those metro areas that are much larger than us. We moved up in the last 2 years, we've moved up 6 spots in the largest metropolitan area. One of the communities that we passed in the last year is Tallahassee. So the Ocala Metro is now larger. The one county Ocala Metro is now larger than the 4-county Tallahassee metropolitan area. So it gives you some ideas of where we're moving. We had said that when we reached 400,000, that we anticipated looking at growth rates that we would, at that point, be about a number of 135, and I think that's probably right on track for where we're headed. But that gives you a sense. It's why it's really important to us, a couple of years ago at the CP, that we modified our name to the Ocala Metro, because we thought it was important. Because how many times, and many of you have done it, Ocala, we're the sweet little town, it's a small town. We get people who come from outside, so Ocala, so in the area there's what, maybe 40,000 people and a bunch of horses. And we often think that way.
Sure.
But the reality is, we've been a fast-growing metro area. We've been a metropolitan area for 42 years. For some of you in this room, we've always been a metropolitan area. We're a community of nearly 400,000 people. We have to think like a community of 400,000 people. We have to solve issues like a community of 400,000 people. And that's really why it was important for us to begin to really integrate think about ourselves and how we market ourselves. One of the other lists on here is great. We once again made U-Haul's list of the fastest growing cities. They measure based on U-Haul one-way rentals, right? So that makes sense. People are moving to a place one way. We ranked in the top 25 for 3 consecutive years. You may be thinking, okay, that's nice, but why is that important? Let me ask you a question. Who moves using U-Haul? People are changing. Let me be most honest, generally young people. I moved last spring. Let me assure you, I was not loading the washing machine or the sofa up onto a truck. I wasn't finding a group of buddies and paying them with pizza to move me. Right? We all remember those days. We've been there. Generally, that's not where we are today. Yes, there's lots of judgment there. That is something that younger people tend to do. Why is that important? Our fastest growing demographic are 30 to 39-year-olds. Yes, we have lots of seniors, and we love our seniors and what they bring to our economy. But understand, when we measure groups, we measure them if you're under the age of 18, in 5-year intervals. Then we measure you in 10-year intervals. And then we just take everybody who's 65 plus and put them in one bucket. Not really sure why we do that, but that's what we do. But that 30 to 39 is our fastest growing group. Why is that important? Again, I asked how many of you were realtors. Kind of prime time when people start buying homes, right? How many of you have employees? You're an employer, you have employees. Yeah. That's key working age. This means we're adding people to the workforce. We're adding people to our community who are going to be buying homes, who are going to be looking for jobs. And that's important as we move forward. Always like U.S. News and World Reports. Great rankings, great data. In their latest list, we are ranked the 4th safest place to live in America, and that's based on FBI data. We are the 6th fastest growing metro. Now, they look at a 5-year average. So over a 5-year period, not including the most recent demographic data because it just came out, we rank as the 6th fastest growing metro, 6th best place to retire, number 16 best metro, and 58 overall. So always good rankings from U.S. News. Now, this one's really, really important, the top one. The Milken Institute. They're a think tank. I love their data because they're not selling me anything. I get lots of rankings. You'll see that we'll share, and they're usually doing rankings because they want to sell me some product or service, which we never buy. But the Milken Institute is just a think tank. And they, every year, do their best performing cities list. And they look at the 200 largest metropolitan areas. Again, we're one of those. And they measure them, they evaluate them across about a dozen different criteria. And it's a really good review, looking at hard data. And so we rank number 48 overall across their data, which is good. I'm happy with that, top quarter. But here's what's most important. We've talked about demographic growth, population growth. they also look at wage growth. Now, demographic growth, remember we've got a nine month lag. In wage data, it's almost 2 years that we get. In their annual wage growth, the Ocala Metro ranked number 4.
Wow.
Out of the 200 largest metropolitan areas. Our wage growth that year was over 10%. The key is, what's the most recent year from which they're able to evaluate data? It's first quarter of 2019 to first quarter of 2020. So all of you who've been looking at wage growth over the last 2 years, over the last 18 months, that's not even part of that. That's just looking at that year. Now, that can present some challenges, but we think that's a great thing. At the CEP, our mission is to create a more prosperous community. Part of the idea has been, as we bring employers, as we always look to push up that wage. For a long time, we were a low-wage community. In fact, I've had one elected official, and I really wish he quit sharing it, who talks about pre-CEP, we thought the 2 things we had to sell were cheap land and cheap labor. We do not have cheap labor, and we do not have cheap land.
Right.
We think this is the best metro in the nation to live. And part of that is being able to have jobs and wages that support people, that they then have the money to go spend in your businesses. And so that's really important data, and we're really pleased with that. Housing, hey, there's been an increase in housing, right?
Right.
Not only are we building more houses, but the price of housing has gone up. In the most recent data that we have that came out in January, we were ranked in the top, I think it's top 10 housing markets. We were number 2 in Florida and number 4 in the nation. And what they looked at is not only sales, but also increase in median price. So if you're already a homeowner, that's a good thing. If you want to become a homeowner, that's a challenge. The best thing about this list, in fact, as we looked at the entire top 25, is Ocala was still the most affordable by far on that list. So as much as it's increased, but that's something, and we can talk more about that later if you all want to. Always as a reminder, what drives growth here? Never forget how important I-75 is. And I know, none of us like to drive on it. I get it, but this really is key. We're a peninsula of nearly 22 million people. And if I were to ask you here, how many of you have had an Amazon package delivered within the last week, I bet nearly every hand would go up. And if it's not Amazon, it's Chewy or some other online order. We like to order stuff. We like to get stuff. That stuff has to get here somehow, and it gets here versus by I-75. That really is key, and you're going to continue to see that drive growth in our area. Did you see that? I got that. If you couldn't see, there was a fly or something that dive there. Here's another example of this. Really, really important in the logistics industry is the one-day drive and back. The ability for a truck to go out, deliver a load or loads, and then come back in a day. This is our drive radius. This came to us from our friends at Amazon. This is huge. We reached 34 million people in this criteria. That's a 39% premium over the I-4 corridor. That's who our competition is in the logistics space. We compete with labor. We say I-4 corridor would be nice, but that's who our competition is. And they're number 1. They are number 1. If you remember the old commercial, we're number 2, so we work harder.
Right.
That's what we do. But I think that's a great visualization. So we've talked about the logistics. You've seen all the big boxes that have popped up. You see the growth in these new companies. I do want to hit briefly on Dollar Tree, and we're going to talk about growth in just a moment. So you may or not have seen the Dollar Tree distribution facility. It's 500,000 square feet in the Florida Crossroads Commerce Park, so down in Marion Oaks. They are, if you go out there now, you'll see dirt being moved. They're getting ready to start construction on phase 2, which we've known all along was coming. They're going to add just over 1 million square feet. So that's a 1.5 million square foot building will make it the second largest building currently in the Ocala Metro, and that's significant. But here's what's really interesting on this expansion, not only are they adding a 1 million square foot plate, it's going to be 14 stories tall. They're going up 146 feet. But it's only one floor. It's only one floor. It's straight up nothing but racking. Now, you may be thinking, who in the world's going to go up in that racking? Here's the answer. Nobody. It will be a highly automated, robotic, and automated pick and pull. Now, they're still going to need to add 500 employees, but it's going to be different skill sets than if it was a traditional pick and pull. I will also have to tell you, I love Dollar Tree. I'm glad they're here. That's a whole lot of crap. Don't record that. That's a whole lot of
value.
Lot of stuff.
Lots of value.
How many of you have noticed in your especially if you get near the interstate, you're starting to see lots of industrial construction. You can see the huge red rock spec building that's being built. This number is so out of date, I can't believe I haven't updated it. We are adding, so spec building's huge. Companies want existing buildings. Right now, if you came, I have a client right now, this week, great project. They need 50 to 100,000 square feet available today. Do you know how many options I have?
None.
Zero. I have two clients who've recently got RFPs on who need 15,000 square feet. And there's really, I think, one option for them. We just don't have, everything we have is full. And I like that, but I want more. I'm a little greedy that way. Spec buildings are huge. We have today, either under construction or will be under construction, nearly 13 million square feet of industrial spec space. That ranges from buildings as small as 40,000 square feet to as large right now up to 1.1 million square feet, and there's another 4 million in the pipeline. Those are big numbers, and I know, it's like, what does that look like? So how many of you have driven by, you can drive by the interstate, and you've looked over and you've seen the Ocala Marion County Commerce Park. So FedEx, AutoZone, Chewy, and Amazon. All right? I want you to visualize that. You have it in your mind? Mm-hmm. Think about those buildings. Now I want you to combine all those buildings together. That's 2 million square feet. So we're talking about almost 7 times that space being added to our market in the next couple of years. That's huge. Now, are all of those going to create thousands of jobs? No. We're talking about this automation piece and how that changes and the different piece. But what it is going to create is tremendous tax base. There aren't any incentives. We don't incentivize spec development. These buildings represent literally $1 billion or more of investment in our community, actually significantly more than that. Why that's important? If you look at Marion County compared to our surrounding counties, here's Marion County, and quite frankly, the city of Ocala's millage rate. Here are all of our neighbors' millage rates. We're all seeing an increase in revenue. Ours is being driven because of this incredible investment in industrial and other business. That keeps the residential rate flat and lower. We all benefit. Whether you ever go to work at one of these or know someone who does, you benefit directly from it just by being able to maintain a lower tax rate. Remember that. One of the things we know is with all this space, we think 40% of it is actually going to become manufacturing. We are unique in Florida. We have a lot of manufacturing here. E1 is probably our most famous. We have thousands of people, over 10,000 people who work in manufacturing in our community. That's an area you're going to see more growth in. Some more information on the manufacturing. Here's an area where we're really starting to see a lot of continued growth, and that's in the office IT sector. We've got some great stories of companies that were born here and grown here, but we're getting more and more every day requests from companies looking for office space. I will tell you, you're not going to see 13 million square feet of office added to the market, but I do think you're going to start seeing some office product. Not today or tomorrow, but in the next couple of years because there's demand. We have gotten, today's Wednesday, I've gotten 2 requests for office this week. One Monday and one Tuesday. We got a couple last week, we get a couple. Here's the challenge. Think about the last time new office was built in this market. I couldn't tell you when it was. So finding space for them, finding companies who want to be here, think about that continual increase we want in wage. That's another way that we add that adds diversity to our economy. So that's something we're going to continue to work on. At the CEP, this is a very entrepreneurial community. In fact, as I look in this room, many of you started the business that you run today. You're an entrepreneur. This is a place that embraces entrepreneurs. We have great rankings, #1 for entrepreneurs per capita. At CEP, we invest and believe in entrepreneurs. Everything that we do through our Power Plant Business Incubator, and I want to tell you, you may be familiar with some of the things we do there. In the coming months, you're really going to see us up that game. We're really going to be adding more resources for entrepreneurs. I won't spend long with this, but I do want to highlight, look, our mission at the CEP is to be the catalyst for a prosperous community. It doesn't say prosperous business community, though we think business is the way that that's delivered. It doesn't say prosperous Southeast community. It doesn't say prosperous equine community. It says prosperous community, which means everyone. Several years ago, as we began looking at data and seeing really good things happen, we began to realize there were pockets that weren't experiencing the same amount of growth. They weren't experiencing the prosperity that other places in our community were. And we really began to dig into that data. And we discovered that it can really be, if you look at 3 areas, which just also happen to be our 3 majority-minority communities, West Ocala, Silver Spring Shores, and Marion Oaks. The income levels lag the county average. The household wealth significantly lag the county average. The number of businesses per capita, which I thought was most interesting, lagged the county average. And so we spent a lot of time talking to experts. How do we impact this? And we believe it's entrepreneurship. That the greatest way to overcome inequality of opportunity is entrepreneurship. Helping people to create their own job, helping people to create wealth for themselves and their family, and to increase access to goods and services in their community. So the Impact Initiative is our way of doing that. We focus on those 3 targeted communities. There's lots of great things that we do through that. One of the things that we learned, though, is that we want to be able to deliver programming within the communities. Just trying to find space for ourselves, we realize part of the reason it's hard to start businesses in those communities is because there aren't any spaces available. And what is available is incredibly expensive. We've just leased space in the Shores for a neighborhood incubator. It'll be focused on retail and service, and we're going to have training space and staff space there. Hopefully it'll be open by the end of this year. But while we were looking for space, we realized the rent rates we were getting quoted in the Shores were equal to or higher than rent rates on Highway 200. Think about that. And that's a reflection of supply and demand. There's very little supply, and so if you need one of the 2 spaces available, you can demand a high price. Well, no wonder it's hard for entrepreneurs to start in that area because it's not affordable. And that's one of the things we hope to accomplish. We hope to, within the next few years, have a neighborhood incubator in each of those 3 communities. Healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. It is a huge driver in our economy. It is the largest employer. It contributes significantly to the tax base. These 3 hospitals, and I've got to update that logo, I just realized that, have invested way over $500 million. Ocala Health, which is now HCA Florida, right? HCA Florida Ocala, HCA Florida West Marion. Here, this is fascinating to me, that we're talking to them about their numbers. Over the last 5 years, they've invested in capital expansion, new facilities, new rooms, new equipment. $200,000 a day, every day, for 5 years. Today, and yesterday, and tomorrow, and the day after, and that's not slowing down. All benefit that we get to take advantage of. We know we're still waiting for a date But in the near future, UF Health is going to be building a hospital in Ocala. You're going to continue to see these hospitals expand and add. And so that's a huge driver for us in thinking about how do we grow, how do we create jobs. We have a whole initiative focused around healthcare that Aaron Jones leads for us. Some really cool things coming down the pipe with this. Equine. We are the horse capital of the world. It is significant for our economy and for our community. We commissioned an economic impact analysis in 2015 that told us that equine directly drives $2.6 billion a year to the local economy. We were set to redo that study to see what the numbers are, but we're putting it on hold because of this little place. So let me ask this way. Who has not been to World Equestrian Center? Okay. Go today. When you're done here, get in your car, drive out there. You cannot understand the enormity of the World Equestrian Center until you're there. We tell people all the time when people want to see, and they talk about, okay, yeah. Wow. It is amazing. As you know, you've seen the data. Phase 2 is under construction now. They're adding another, now a 400-room hotel. They're adding 80,000 square feet of additional event space and 80,000 square feet of retail commercial space. Huge continued investment. And I can tell you from what I know, phase 2 is not the end.
Right.
It is phase 2. So what that does is you take this facility and you add to it this amazing new facility. Opened 2 weekends ago, Florida Aquatic Swimming and Training Facility, $40 million investment by the Coleman Foundation. Two really important things about this facility. Number one, per USA Swimming, directly to us. There's not another facility like this in the eastern United States. And number two, it's capable of hosting anything up to and including the Olympic trials. Wow. Think about this. Literally, in a few years, you could turn on the TV and be watching qualifiers for the Olympics at the World Equestrian Center and qualifiers for the Olympics at FAST, all in Ocala, all going on simultaneously. FAST is amazing. It's brand new. You probably haven't been out there yet. Make a reason to go. It's part of the new Palessa development. Here's what that's going to do. It makes tourism a significant part of our economy once again. Tourism's been a nice gravy, if you will. It's now becoming part of the main deal. It is important, and it will be as these facilities get online and continue to attract people. Great example, FAST. They're moving very carefully so they can get used to the facilities and hosting big crowds. But they're hosting the Florida Championships this summer. 500 athletes, plus parents, plus coaches, plus officials, plus fans for 5 days. Start thinking about how many hotel rooms that's going to require this summer. I need hotels, by the way. I need lots of hotels. If you know of anyone who's a hotel developer, I would love to talk to them about the opportunities in the market. Local income growth. Median household income grew a third faster than the nation 2016 to 2020. If you think about that wage piece, there's the number 4 in annual wage growth. I mentioned that to you. In their 5-year period, we ranked number 25, so 2015 to 2020. I expect that when I get the version of this report next year, we will have moved up in both those spots. And so that's important. We want to continue to push up that wage growth. Some quick employment numbers. Current unemployment rate is 3.6%. As we look at where we're creating jobs, we continually are a leader in manufacturing and logistics in the state among the 21 metro areas. Interestingly, for the last quarter, we've been leading the state in the growth of information jobs. Again, one of the things that's key to us, how many of you were here in the really exciting, glamorous times of 07, 08? We don't forget that time. not only do we want to create jobs, we want to create higher wage jobs, but we're trying to create diversity within the economy. As much as possible, just as you look for diversity within your investment portfolio, we're trying to do that in the economy because we know there's going to be downturns. We want to position this community to grow and succeed through those downturns. That's part of that diversity. That's my presentation for you all today. I will be happy to answer any questions as long as you will let me talk. Oh, look, there they go.